live in a world where people wear masks without even realizing it. Not for deception, but for survival, approval, belonging. But what if I told you those masks are silently killing who you really are? Every time you let someone else define you, you hand over the steering wheel to your own life. This video is not just about breaking free from others' control. It's about reclaiming your inner authority before it's too late. Control isn't always loud. It's not always someone shouting at you, demanding your obedience. Often, it's a whisper, a glance, a subtle suggestion that makes you question your worth unless you comply. This is how society programs us from the earliest moments. You're praised when you behave, scolded when you resist. You're rewarded for obedience, punished for deviation. Slowly, without ever signing a contract, you begin to mold yourself into a version of you that they approve of. You conform, not out of fear, but out of conditioning. School teaches you to raise your hand for permission, not to speak your mind. Work trains you to follow procedure, not passion. And social media, it conditions you to crave validation over authenticity. This is not accidental. This is structural. The systems we live within aren't just designed to organize, they're designed to control. And the most dangerous part, the moment you start believing that these borrowed beliefs are your own, when you internalize the expectations of others, their voices become your inner critic. The chains no longer need to be visible, because now you are the one holding them tight. You begin to monitor your every action. Will they like this? Will this make me accepted? Will this get me love? The fear of being seen as too much, too different, or too rebellious makes you shrink, edit, and ultimately forget who you were before the world told you who to be. The most subtle kind of prison is the one you can't see, because if you don't know you're trapped, you'll never try to escape. The walls are made of opinions, fears, and unwritten rules. And the jailer, it's not just them. It's the part of you that agreed to the terms without realizing the cost. From the moment you could speak, you were taught to say yes. Yes to parents, yes to teachers, yes to bosses, friends, lovers, strangers. No was labeled selfish, rude, rebellious. But no is the first word of freedom. It's the boundary between who you are and who the world wants you to be. Every time you say yes when your heart screams no, a piece of you goes missing, slowly, silently. You become a mosaic of compromises, not because you're weak, but because you were taught that love is earned through compliance, that your value depends on how useful you are to others. That peace is keeping quiet. But here's the truth. Real peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of alignment. You were not born to be palatable. You were born to be whole. And that wholeness includes your right to say no, to walk away, to stand still while the world demands motion. Saying no doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you an honest one. Reclaiming your no is not about rejection. It's about redirection. It's you choosing your path over someone else's agenda. It's about finally acknowledging that you are the author of your life and no one else gets to hold the pen. The moment you stop performing for acceptance, you begin living from authenticity. And while that might threaten those who benefited from your silence, it will awaken something powerful within you. The courage to be disliked, because the price of being truly free is this. Some people will not like the real you, but the people who matter, they'll never ask you to hide. Every relationship you've ever had is a mirror, reflecting not just love or connection, but also the control you allow. Think about it. The friend who always needs your time, the partner who guilt trips your independence, the family member who manipulates with silence. These people aren't controlling you on their own. They're responding to the parts of you that still believe you must trade authenticity for approval. We tend to attract people who echo our unconscious beliefs. If you secretly believe your worth is conditional, you'll find yourself surrounded by people who love you conditionally. If you fear abandonment, you'll unconsciously submit to control just to avoid being left. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Until you take your power back internally, the world will continue to show you who still holds it. And often, it's not even the people. It's the programming, the belief that being alone is worse than being controlled. That discomfort is more dangerous than dishonesty, that keeping the peace is worth your self-respect. But when you wake up, really wake up, you begin to see it clearly. You recognize which connections were built on dependency, not truth, and you no longer hate the people who reflected that truth back at you. Instead, you thank them, because without that mirror, you might have never seen what still needed healing. This is the shift. From why are they doing this to me, to why am I still allowing it? That moment of reflection isn't weakness, it's the doorway to your liberation. Because once you see the pattern, you can break it. Once you see the mirror, you can shatter it. You were born with an inner compass, a quiet, unwavering sense that knows when something aligns and when it doesn't. But over time, that voice gets drowned out by louder ones. The voice of culture, parents, religion, algorithms. You learn to consult everyone but yourself. And slowly, your intuition becomes a whisper, until it disappears beneath the noise. But here's the thing. That voice never left. It's still there, waiting, watching. It's the gut feeling when something feels off, the deep ache when you betray your own needs, the subtle pull when you're near something that feels like truth. Reclaiming that voice, your inner authority, isn't about becoming selfish. It's about becoming sovereign. It's the bold act of choosing your own path, even when it disappoints others. It's learning to sit in the discomfort of being misunderstood, knowing that your soul recognizes something the world doesn't. When you truly listen to that voice, decisions get clearer. You stop asking for permission and start giving yourself approval. You no longer need constant reassurance because you've built a trust within yourself that doesn't shake with external winds. And the irony, the more you trust your own voice, the less you need to control others, and the harder it becomes for others to control you. Because a person who follows their own truth becomes unpredictable to the system. And unpredictability is power, because you can no longer be manipulated by guilt, fear, or approval. You've become your own guide, and nothing is more terrifying to those who once led you by the hand. Control doesn't always look like dominance. Sometimes it hides behind guilt. It whispers through obligation. It disguises itself as love, duty, or even kindness. And it teaches you that your freedom is a threat to someone else's comfort. You've been conditioned to believe that saying no makes you selfish, that choosing yourself makes you cold, that walking away from toxicity means you're disloyal. But who wrote those rules? And who benefits from them? Guilt is one of the most effective tools of control. Not because it's loud, but because it feels like your own thought. You begin to punish yourself for choosing peace. You feel wrong for prioritizing your own energy. And that's exactly how the cycle continues. You stay in situations that drain you, shrink yourself to fit others' expectations, and carry weight that was never yours to hold. But here's the revelation. Obligation is not love. Guilt is not guidance. And staying small to protect others' comfort is not compassion. It's self-abandonment. The truth is, you owe no one your suffering. You were not born to be agreeable. You were born to be authentic. And when you finally drop the guilt and choose yourself, you don't become cruel. You become whole. People might not like it. They may call it a betrayal, but their discomfort is not your responsibility to resolve. Your responsibility is to the truth inside of you, the one that's been waiting for permission to breathe freely. Rebellion doesn't always need a stage. Some of the most radical acts of self-liberation happen in silence, not with shouting, but with walking away, not with confrontation, but with refusal. You don't have to explain why you no longer pick up the phone for that person who drains you. You don't need a monologue to justify why you're quitting the job that suffocates your spirit. You don't need permission to reclaim your energy, your time, yourself. We've been taught that freedom must be loud, that to resist control, we must fight, argue, prove. But sometimes, the most powerful form of resistance is to simply remove your presence, to vanish from what no longer resonates, to slip out of their grasp, not with rage, but with clarity. This is the quiet revolution, choosing not to engage, not because you're weak, but because you finally see it's not your war. The old version of you, the one who stayed, explained, tried, has nothing left to prove. And the silence you leave behind, it speaks louder than any argument ever could. Because when you stop playing the role they assign to you, the entire script begins to crumble. You didn't just walk away, you broke the illusion. And you did it without saying a word. You've been told what's acceptable, desirable, and possible since before you could speak. But it's not just the world that controls you. It's the version of the world that lives inside your mind. The internalized judge, the inner critic, the voice that tells you to stay quiet, be nice, fit in, be grateful, don't stand out. Control becomes most dangerous when it stops looking like them and starts sounding like you. That's the moment they win. Not when they chain your hands, but when they shape your identity so thoroughly that you chain yourself. You silence your own truth. You anticipate rejection before it comes. You downgrade your dreams so they don't make others uncomfortable. This is the architecture of internalized control, a self-policing system built on fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of abandonment. You become your own jailer because somewhere along the way, the need for acceptance overtook your instinct for freedom. But here's the thing, those rules you follow in your head, they're not laws of nature. They're agreements, and agreements can be broken. The voice that tells you you're not good enough, not worthy, too much, too loud, that's not your voice. That's the echo of someone else's fear, someone else's limitation, someone else's need to control the world around them. It's been passed down, generation to generation, like an invisible virus. So now the question becomes, who are you beneath all that programming? If you could mute every internalized command, if you could tear down the beliefs that were never yours to begin with, what kind of life would remain? The answer is terrifying and liberating, because it means you've been living in a construct and you hold the power to tear it down. Most people imagine freedom as this euphoric state, sunlight, wind in your hair, nothing but possibilities. But the truth is, real freedom doesn't always feel good at first. In fact, it often feels like loss. Why? Because when you start breaking away from control, you also lose the things that once gave you identity, the roles, the relationships, the beliefs, the version of you that fit neatly into the world's expectations. Freedom strips away the false self, and when that self falls away, it can feel like dying. You feel exposed, uncertain, raw. because the scaffolding that held up your life is no longer there, and now you have to build from the ground up, with nothing but your truth. This is the part no one talks about: the grief, the loneliness, the disorientation. And yet, it's the sacred initiation into a life that's finally yours. When you let go of control, you also let go of the rewards it promised: validation, approval, familiarity. But what you gain is something far more rare: sovereignty, no longer guided by fear, no longer chasing applause, no longer shrinking yourself to be palatable. At first, it may feel like chaos, but over time, it becomes peace. Not the peace of pleasing everyone, but the peace of belonging to yourself. And that is the highest form of power you can ever attain. When you finally start stepping outside the systems of control, when you stop seeking permission, validation, applause, there's a moment where the world around you goes quiet. No one is clapping. No one is praising you. No one is guiding you anymore. You're left standing alone with your truth. And that's the final test. Because freedom doesn't come with a round of applause. It comes with silence. And it asks you, can you keep walking even when no one sees you? Even when the path is unclear? Even when every part of you wants to go back to the comfort of conformity? That silence is where most people turn around. They go back to the roles, the expectations, the safety of being controlled. Because at least there they were seen. They were understood. They belonged. But if you can stand in that silence and still walk forward, you become unstoppable. Not because you're loud, but because you've stopped needing anything outside of yourself to validate your path. This is where you meet your true self, the one untouched by programming, the one who is always there beneath the masks, the one who doesn't beg for freedom, because they already are freedom. This isn't about rebellion for the sake of it. It's not about being difficult, angry, or defiant. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. You were born whole, free, radiating possibility. And piece by piece, the world tried to shape you, tame you, mold you into something it could control. But that wildness is still there, buried beneath layers of programming and performance. The journey back to yourself will cost you everything that isn't real. But what you gain is a life that no one can take from you. So stop asking for permission. Stop explaining your truth. Stop waiting for someone to save you. And remember, the moment you stop being controlled by others is the moment you become who you were always meant to be. And that is the most dangerous, beautiful thing in the world.